Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another chat about God, and it's Tom and Dan coming to you here from beautiful South Florida in Boca Raton, and we are excited to have you here and to have another conversation about God. And before we dive into a chat that's going to be how we're in this world but not of this world, and we're going to dive into that and how to interact knowing what we know in the world with the perspective that we're going to be sharing with you. We felt it's a nice time to recap because what you're going to hear from us is most likely something you definitely not hearing in the churches and probably have never heard in the churches. Yet it is mentioned in the Bible, and it is exactly what Jesus fulfilled when he came and when he went to the cross. And it's mind-blowing when you hear how it's not talked about. How can this be? And you hear it. It's almost like going to a school where they're teaching kids 2 plus 2 equals 5. And you're like, whoa, 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 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's clear. Here's where and how, yet they're still teaching 2 plus 2 equals 5. And what we're talking about is something called the New Covenant. And the New Covenant is not the New Testament. The New Covenant is what Jesus ushered in by going to the cross for you, for me, for Dan, for all of humanity. So, Dan, how can we help people understand things about the New Covenant and possibly about one of the first stories we hear in the Bible, the trees, the 2 trees, which one of the trees is the operating system in that world that we're going to be talking about here shortly. What's the best way to recap for everyone here with us?
I think that it's tough because we grow up in something and we're taught something and then we're convinced. And then
we hear it over and over and over and over.
We hear it over and over and over, and then we connect our identity to it, and then it's upsetting to us.
So back to that if 2 plus 2 equals 5, and we heard that and heard that and heard that, and someone finally comes and says, well, let me show you how 2 plus 2 equals 4. Whoa, time out there, buddy.
That's hard on us.
Yep.
And so, and it's listen, we've been in that message, we've been taught, if you hear anything else, it's got to be from the devil, okay? So it can't be, and so we've kind of gotten to the place where it's like, boy, if we don't hear it from, if we don't hear it from pastor, priest,
with the
rabbi,
with the degrees.
Yeah, if we don't hear it from that, then I don't want to hear about it.
Yep.
And so, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to comprehend that. Okay.
Because so in the New Covenant it says the word is written on the hearts.
So what am I afraid of if I understand what I believe in? So, I mean, I just had somebody close to me, and I said, well, I don't go to church, and I don't go to church. And I walked out of the church when I was 34. And the answer was, well, I really don't want to hear about it. I know what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
That's just mind-blowing. I mean, wouldn't you want to...
Curious about that.
Wouldn't you want to know, hey, tell me about that,
Right. Yeah.
I want to hear where you're coming from, instead of just automatically, well, it's got to be the devil, so I don't want to hear about it, or, well, he had a bad experience, or whatever. But it's like when you came and we sat down, I sat down, got a cup of tea, let you talk.
Yeah.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah.
And here you are today. What do you believe in? You believe in God.
God, the New Covenant.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
the devil no longer exists.
Yeah.
Sin no longer exists.
Why would I be afraid of some message? What's the problem? So we were talking, and this person was talking about their church, and there's a lot of expenses. So she started talking to me about tithing, and I said, well, I said, I don't know if we can really teach tithing, I mean, you know, when they talk to the Gentiles in the epistles, you're not going to find tithing. I mean, you're not going to be able to find it. I mean, go look at the epistles. You know, find it, let me know. But you know, so the only place you're going to find it in the New Testament is when he's talking to the Pharisees. So I'm not sure how we can be out there telling people about tithing. Okay, and the answer was, well, my pastor studies the Bible and he went to Bible school. And so that's the answer I got. My pastor studies the Bible and he went to Bible school. And so, you know, that's wow.
That's fighting for 2 + 2 = 5. Instead of being open to hearing how 2 + 2 = 4.
Wow.
And let's just share it like this message, bringing in the new covenant. We'll talk about that, but it brings peace and rest. Prior to that, I was believing things that I heard in the church that didn't bring me peace and rest, that actually brought me internal conflict. Because things just weren't adding up. I'm hearing this, but I'm seeing this. Like, it's just not like, I'm hearing of God's grace, except for these people. They don't deserve grace, and these people don't deserve grace. And it was confusing to my mind and heart. But when I heard you explain the new covenant, and basically, you know, it finds peace and rest within me, in no internal conflict, that it's not an exclusive group. It's an all-inclusive group of humanity, that what Jesus did was for all. Not all except these people, for all inclusive.
I think, but I think before we can get there, I'm just saying, so Tom, when you grow up in something, and listen, I grew up in it.
Yeah.
I grew up in theology, man. I get it. It was hard to walk out of church. And I have another friend close to me. She said the same thing. She said, let me tell you something. It was hard for me to walk out of church because I missed all that social life, you know. And I had another friend. I just talked to her probably 4 months ago, and she was trying to do it. It was funny because she told me, I don't know, a year before that, well, I got some friends, and we go out to lunch after church and all that kind of stuff. And I said, it's great. I mean, hey, buddy, if you want to go to church, go to church, Right. And she said, but it's hard for me. It's just hard for me to sit and listen to that. And I said, well, okay. And so we got done, and I just started laughing. I go, well, it's not going to be long, And then sure enough, she called me and said, I just can't do this anymore. So I'm just saying, listen, if you've been taught something all your life, and you're just convinced of that, and somebody shows up and starts talking about something, completely different, that's just a hard thing to get over. It's just hard for people. And it was hard for me, So I show up and, I start talking about the new covenant. And so what we got to do is when we start talking about that is we start where it started, right? I mean, we ate from a tree. It's called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
A lot of people overlook that.
Shouldn't we be starting where it starts?
Yeah.
I think people think it started with God said, don't eat from the tree. And they ate from the tree. They disobeyed God. And now sin's entered into the world. And now we sin.
Yeah.
Now we sin. And we see ourselves misbehave. So I know that's true.
Yeah.
See, so life just keeps confirming this message that they've been taught their whole life. And the message that I was taught my whole life, see. So I show up and I said there's no such thing as sin. Well,
We're gonna fight that.
that just doesn't compute.
Yep.
But we got to start out where it starts. We ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the thing that defines what we call sin.
Good and bad, right and wrong.
Yeah. And so here we are, 2,000 years after the death of Christ, still feeding off the same tree.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Why would we think that's right? Mm-hmm. Why in the world would we think that's what we ought to be doing?
My answer is only because we're born into it and taught that. That's it.
That's all we know.
Right, that's all we know.
And the teacher keeps
teaching it. This is right, that's wrong. And it comes from the tree.
And it's so bad. I mean, we're convinced that God wants us to know. Well, Dan, don't you understand? God wants us to know the difference between right and wrong? I mean, you don't understand that? See? Mm-hmm. So that's why we keep teaching what we're teaching. And that's why we keep recycling the message.
The thing you shared with me is prior to them eating from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they didn't know good and evil. They didn't know right and wrong. They didn't know they were obedient or disobedient. They saw something that was delightful to their eyes, and they ate it. Well, and people are like, well, God told them not to. They should have known better. They didn't know. They didn't have the tree of knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, it even starts earlier than that. Because what it starts with creation.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
So every day, what God do? Well, He spoke and something happened, right? Mm-hmm. Let there be light. Here comes the light, right? Well, where was God? Where was man? Right? Well, he didn't exist. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when's the first day of man? Well, the day of rest.
Day of rest.
Okay. Now, why in the world, looking at the picture of creation, why in the world would we think we're in the equation?
Egotistical, narcissistic.
Well, listen, the only reason why we think we're in the equation is exactly what you said. The ego tells us we're in the equation.
And we try to take the God role.
Because, but what I'm seeing is, why isn't the teacher teaching that?
Mm-hmm. Day of rest.
Isn't that something?
When man comes. So
why in the world? Well, that came from the tree, with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So okay, so we showed up, right? Well, what did he say in the second chapter? He says, I created the tree of the knowledge of good and evil to be delightful to their eyes. Well, why in the world did he do that?
Because that was part of the initial. If he finished everything before the creation began, that was part of the whole entire plan. It was no surprise. Like, here's when you maximize God, God's not surprised by anything that He's created.
And then on top of that, what does He do? He goes to man, He says, you know, you can eat the fruit from all of the trees in the garden, but not that one. The one that I made delightful to your eyes, guess what? You can't eat from that one. I mean, don't we think we ought to be talking about this?
So man didn't sin, man fulfills God's will.
The only thing we talk about is God says don't eat from the fruit. They ate from the tree, the fruit,
sin.
And sin entered the world, and now we're in sin, and well, gosh darn, we could go to hell. And then Jesus showed up, and he made a way. Now instead of going to the bad place, we get to go to the good place. And now, since you got saved and you're born again, you got to understand, you're still a sinner. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that one works.
Yep.
Okay.
That's eating That's
Yeah, I don't know how that one works, but you're still a sinner.
eating off the tree.
And so what you got to do is you got to go get discipled now. You got to get discipled, okay?
Gotta do certain
And you got to
things.
grow up and to get discipled, you know. And where you go to get discipled is you got to go to the church building, and then see the church. They'll disciple you. You're growing, and you know what you're growing in? A church program.
Yeah, not in Christ. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So what did Christ really do? What did Christ really come to fulfill?
Anyway, isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're back there in the garden. Okay. And so the question would be.
Let me just throw this in. I mean, we listen to some people that are very well known and followed, and some people say, well, what you're doing is minimizing God, when the reality is you're maximizing God. What we're talking about is, this is not a surprise to God. He made it attractive to their eyes, appealing to them. Eat out everything, but not that. They fulfilled God's will that He knew when He created everything, it was going to happen.
What this is doing, remember in the Bible where it says, He must increase and you must decrease? Who's supposed to be decreasing?
Us.
This idea of man. Okay? So
we think we threw a monkey wrench in God's plan. Oh, humans went and ate off the fruit. God didn't know that or foresee that. And that
it's
threw
like
everything off.
We're huge and God, well, He just does these dumb things. He does this. You know what He does? He gave us this range. And see, what He does is, if we get out of the range, He just kind of nudges us. Now He does His part and nudges us back into the,
We have free reign, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when you maximize God, you recognize what Dan's saying is this was all part of the plan. And Dan, fill them in on, which I'm sure they may know the scripture, God created this all before existence began.
Yeah, well, he see, it's just too much.
So this is a big one. This is a big one.
It's too much, and we can't teach it because it's, we don't see ourselves in it.
Yeah.
See, we don't see ourselves in it.
God couldn't do it without me.
We don't have a part in it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why we think we got a part in it. I just don't understand it.
Ego and narcissistic.
Yeah, I mean, the ego tells us that.
God couldn't have done it without me.
In Timothy, it tells us that I saved you. I saved them for my purpose and my grace. When? Before the world began. So again, guys,
So it was no surprise to God.
So hard for us.
It was no surprise to God that, although it was delightful to the eyes, and He said, "Don't eat it." It wasn't a surprise to God that that's exactly the plan that unfolded. Because God's will is all.
So let's get all the way to the end, right? Let's just for a second. Okay, let's go all the way to the end. Okay, so your body dies, right? Your body dies. Okay. Well, guess what? In a twinkling of an eye, you wake up. Well, what do you find out? Well, all that stuff that we were so sure of
Didn't mean a thing.
that free will, belief system, your knowledge of right and wrong, well, guess you know what He said? He says you're going to have a renewing of your mind. Well, why in the world did He say you're going to have a renewing of your mind? Why aren't you going to have a new mind if your mind was right? If your mind was right and you knew, why are you going to get a renewing of your mind?
The veil comes off.
Because you didn't know. Just like I didn't know. I thought I knew because I was eating off the fig tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I saw myself doing, so I'm the power source behind the doing, so we must be in free will. I'm making the decisions. I'm creating my own world, and here we go.
AKA, you're the God in the
Yeah. We're the God and the God relationship. So do you understand what I'm saying?
And I congratulate you for sticking with us. This is hard.
So sorry.
It's hard. There's a lot to throw at you. A lot to throw at you. Rewind it. Listen again.
It's hard.
It's all in there. We're not making this up.
So it's an amazing thing that you can go to church your whole life. I mean, literally, you can go to church for 80 years.
You won't hear it.
And you're not going to hear the new covenant.
Because it goes against the program. So we jump to the end of the human and the twinkle of the eye. What's the end of what did Jesus come and fulfill?
Okay, but what I'm saying is, let's
one step at a time.
Let's slow down. Just what I'm saying is, okay, in creation, were we there?
No.
No. Okay. Did we know what sin was? Did we have the knowledge of right and wrong when we ate of the fruit?
Before we ate? No.
No, we didn't. Well, when did we have the knowledge of right and wrong?
After we ate the fruit.
After we ate.
Was that all a shock to God that we did that? No. Is anything a shock to God? No. God is the creator,
well,
the grand architect.
What did he say in that book you say you believe in? It says, behold, all things need to pass away. The old things need to pass away, and behold, all things need to become new. Well, why did he say that? He wasn't talking about your behavior, guys. He wasn't talking about your behavior. The old stuff, guess what that was? That old thing that was supposed to pass away is that old fig tree that withered and died. That belief system that you feed off is the thing that was supposed to pass away. And guess what? They're just not going to teach that. And so what's new? Well, everything's new. It's all new. And so what we're talking to you about is something that's new to you. It's new to you, just like at one time it was new to me. So when I heard the new thing, I listened to it. I took the time to listen to it. Okay?
What did the person say in that radio? In that radio that you found and you heard that? He said...
What did I hear? Okay, I heard Bob George. He's not with us. I mean, he's with us, right? Thank you.
And we have him on our page, chatsaboutgod.com.
Love you, buddy.
You can see a resource there.
But what did I hear? I heard somebody say, you know what? We're justified, we're reconciled, we're sanctified, we're made holy, and we're made perfect. Now, where in the world is sin in that? Well, that's the new covenant. The problem is we're not being taught the new covenant. We're still feeding off the old covenant tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so we're just so convinced. We are just so convinced because the person that's telling us this, we love them.
They mean good. They mean well.
And we trust them. And it's just like this person that was close to me. What'd she say? She said, well, my pastor studies the Bible and he went to Bible school.
And he knows 2 + 2 = 5. And he's not talking about or open to hear about the new covenant.
Well, guys, what do you think they teach them when they go to Bible school? They teach them the old covenant.
Because that's the system that Jesus came to destroy.
Which is connected to the old covenant belief system. So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So, but they don't teach them that. So what do? They get out of Bible school, they go start church, and what do? They start teaching. Well, the problem is sin. The problem is your behavior.
God needs you to do this, this, and this, and not do this, this, and this.
We need to go search the scriptures to find out what right living is. Okay. It's a self-improvement program is what it is. That's really what it is. So if we go and we talk to the teacher and we say, well, do you believe in free will? You know what he's going to say? He's going to agree with the world. He's going to agree with the world, and he's going to say, yeah, I believe in free will. And what is he going to do? You go to the teacher and you say, well, do you believe in yourself? Well, what is he going to say? Yeah. I'm an independent self. Why? Well, because I believe in my will and my power. That's an independent self. That's somebody who believes in themselves. They're self-believers. So, what do we do? Well, we're believing what the world believes. Well, why are we doing that? So here we are. I'm back to, why can't we hear this? Why can't we hear this? Well, we can't hear this because somebody told us it isn't true. It can't be true.
We would have heard it if it was.
Yeah.
We'd have heard about it.
And it's the same thing, guys. It's the same thing that goes on. I'm just going to say it. It's the same thing that goes on in the Catholic Church and goes on in the Mormon Church. They stand up there and they say that Bible, that book, it's got problems. It's got errors. It's got errors in it. It's okay for you to read it. It's okay for you to read, but
we're going to have to interpret it.
We're going to have to interpret it for you. And, it's got... What are they doing? What are they putting in you? They're putting in you, I can't trust that book. Right? And so somebody shows up the new covenant. What have you been taught? Well, you can't trust anything unless it comes from the teacher. Listen, we've seen that. We've seen that from the comments we get, right?
Yeah.
Well, God, if there's any truth out there, He's going to bring it through the church.
I heard about
I've heard, guys, I got to tell you something. I've heard this my whole life.
It's the Gospel of Dan.
Yeah, it's the Gospel of Dan. Dan thinks he's got to beware of the guy with the secret interpretation, the private interpretation. Beware. Ah, man.
So the Bible represents the Old Covenant, which is law. Do this, don't do this. And the Bible is pretty clearly demonstrating that man's trying to say, we can do it, and God's continuing saying, no, you can't. But the good news is, I did it for you. And that's where Jesus comes in. Man couldn't do it. God sent His Son, Jesus, God, to die on the cross for us, ushering in the New Testament. And when you said New Covenant, a lot of people hear this and think, well, yeah, I read the New Testament. No. New Covenant is not the New Testament. The New Testament mentions some things about the New Covenant, but so does other aspects. So the New Covenant is mentioned briefly in the Bible, but the whole Bible itself is a representation of the Old Covenant. When Jesus talks about mixing old wine with new in the old wineskins, that's mixing the law with grace. The grace is the New Covenant. The law is the Old Covenant. And so how can we understand what Jesus came to fulfill, to include, if you believe in Jesus, and I like how you ask me and others, like, do you believe in Jesus? Okay. Then why do you still believe in the devil? Why do you still believe in sin? If Jesus came to do away with those, then how can you say you believe in Jesus if you still believe in the devil and sin?
But I want to say
There's a lot.
Right. I want to say this thing. I'm going to say this again, and I've said this on our podcast before. I'll say it again. This isn't a private interpretation. Listen, there's people out there that I know that know this. Okay? Guys, you got to understand something. They're not sitting in a church building. You're not rubbing up against them. Okay? I was working at a company. I was working at this company. I go in there, walked in the guy's office. First time, never met the guy before. It's a huge company. I walk in the guy's office. He's got some sayings on the wall, on his wall in his office. And I said, "Hey, Rich, tell me about that. Tell me about that thing. Tell me about it." Mm-hmm. That's like talking to a kid in the candy shop. Yeah. Asking somebody like us. He's all excited. So he starts telling me about it, and I said, "Oh man, Rich, it's good." I said, "How about that? Tell me about that." He's telling me. I go, "Man, how did you learn this stuff? How did you come up with this?" Now this is something I'd already known for years, but walking this guy's office, I go, "Huh?" And he said, "Man," I was in college and I was looking through a microscope and I see this thing that the human eye can't see. It's the doggone thing. I look down there and it's feeding itself." Mm-hmm. He's like, "Wow, he's eating. That thing is eating. Where in the world did he get the food? And how do you know where to get it?" Mm-hmm. He's like, it was like, he said, I remember him saying this. It was like I was looking down through the microscope, and God was down there looking straight back up at me, Mm-hmm. And he said, I started going to church, because that's
next obvious step.
That's what it's what we do. Mm-hmm. We don't know anything else. That's why the Gentiles started a church. That's all they knew. Saw the Jews over there going to the temple. That's all they knew. So, he started going to church, and he says, I went to church. It's like, huh?
Things didn't add up.
And I was like, what? And so I just started talking to God about it, Mm-hmm. Then I heard about this new covenant thing. Started looking at that, and I was going, my gosh.
That makes sense.
Why don't they ever talk about it? Why don't I ever hear this? Mm-hmm. So I go talk to my pastor, because why? Well,
they know about this stuff.
What else am I supposed to do? You went to Bible school, He
didn't want to dive into the new covenant.
He goes, wow, I left that going, okay.
Interesting.
So, I just started learning stuff, and now I don't go to church anymore.
Talks to God.
You see.
Yeah.
So, he said I tried to, because I had a wife and 2 kids, and, my wife, we got to go to church, So I tried, but he said eventually I couldn't do it. But anyway. So that's what happens, guys, and that's just another scary thing. Oh my gosh, we get a hold of this, we're not going to go to church anymore. Oh my gosh, that's another scary thing that happens, and you go through. But listen, what Tom and I are talking about here is, do we want to know who God is? Is that important to us? I mean, is that worth everything? I don't know. All I can say, for me it was. Yeah. For me it was. And it was that way for Rich. We talked about all this stuff. So
it brings a level of
you kind of have to get past some of this scary stuff you've been taught, And then there's, oh my gosh, if I oh my gosh, if I do this, God will not like me anymore. He'll be disappointed. I'll be out of the will of God. That's a big one. I'll be out of the will of God. Somehow I can get out of the will of God.
Yeah, but you can't. So the good news is
man.
there's nothing you can do to get out of God's grace or will.
And then we say we're free. I mean, this person I was with over the weekend, she said, we used to go to this church and it was legalistic, and now I go to this church. Oh, I'm free, And here she is talking about sin and the devil and the will of God and, this and that. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like freedom to me. It's not freedom.
It's more shackles and burden and fear and worry and this.
And so we think we're free.
Yeah.
We think we're free.
The new
our pastor's loving.
Yep.
He's a loving guy, and people in the church are so loving.
Yep.
We're not talking about learning the church program. We're talking about knowing God. And,
So fill them in on how much God loved us and what Jesus actually did. A lot of people, like you said, think Jesus made the way. But Jesus ushered in the new covenant. Fulfilled.
Yeah, listen.
Getting rid of the devil, getting rid of sin.
What's taught, the cross experience is the fullness. The fullness of the cross is not taught. It just isn't. It's just not taught. So again, hey guys, it says that man, man died, was buried, and resurrected as a new creature in Christ Jesus. Again, he wasn't talking about behavior. In other words, you used to smoke and now you don't smoke. You used to drink, now you don't drink. Well, you used to dance, now you don't dance. You used to smoke pot, now I don't smoke pot. That's not a new creature. That's not what he's talking about. Okay? Well, I used to do bad things and now I do good things. So we died, we were buried, we were resurrected as a new creature with Christ Jesus. Well, what that means is who you are, who you think you are today. If you're walking around thinking you're an independent self with your own will and your own power, that you can decide, you can do it, well, then you didn't die. Because that's what it means. That's what being a new creature means. A new creature, remember when I was talking about having a renewed mind after you die? It means you didn't have a right mind. So an old creature doesn't mean, well, you used to do a bad thing and now you do a good thing. That's not... Man, it's so tough for me because I've heard this crap for so many years. And the thing is, man, what's hard. Why? You know why? Why is it hard on me? It's because I love people.
Yep. And the pain that it gives people to not recognize this doesn't.
I just see, man, I've got so many friends that are Christians, They have no idea what that message is doing to them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's hard on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you come out of something, right? When you have an understanding, and you look back, wow. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, we talked, you know, Tom started out with, we're in this world, not of it, you know. It's something Paul talked about. I'm in this world, but not of it. So what that means is, Tom and I, you know, we're in this world, this realm, we're walking around in it, we're breathing.
That has the operating system of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And we're walking around in a realm, and this realm's operating system is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, buddy. Listen, you can tell me I'm an idiot. You can tell me whatever you want to tell me. I'm wrong about this, wrong about this, wrong about this, but you can't tell me that man doesn't operate from his right and wrong, good versus evil belief system.
Just look out and witness it every day.
Oh my gosh.
What wars are about.
Man, if we can't, listen guys, if we can't make that connection, that this is what we ate from, if we can't make that connection, you know what that's kind of, you know what that really is? I'll tell you, yeah. I don't want to lose this thought. Right. You know what that is? That's like an atheist saying, I don't believe in God.
It's all around you, right?
And freaking God's all around us, right?
It's a fish not believing it's
right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to believe, I can't. Do you see God? Remember, we got comments. Where's the eyewitness?
Yeah, right. Prove to me. Who saw?
See what I'm saying? Right. It's the same thing.
Yep.
That's like an atheist saying there is no God. Well, look around, man.
It's all God, yeah. Yep.
So
the operating system is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but it's by God's design. See, that's the other thing. We have to God did not, oh crap, it's now running by the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Oh, that messed up my whole plan. God did it all from the beginning. It's running exactly as it is, which comes to the fact that some people are still waiting for a Messiah, because then it would remove all this chaos and we'd have eternal peace in heaven on earth. Well, that's not how this world is set up. The operating system is set up under the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it's not going to change, and the Messiah came and didn't change it, but the Messiah freed us from recognizing we can be in the world but not of it. We can still participate and go about in the world just like he and his disciples did while he was here. And they paid taxes and they did things because they were in the world but not of it.
Yeah, so we're in the world but not of it. So what I'm saying is, in my understanding, in my renewed mind, I no longer see sin.
And God doesn't see it from his perspective either.
And that's why it says in Hebrews, the author in Hebrews said, you will be unconscious. You will not be conscious of sin. That's why he said that. That's why he said, the same author said, where there is no law, there is no sin. That's why he said that we are now slaves to righteousness. Well, we can't be anything else. So God, Christ, the cross, a part of that fullness of the cross was he made you righteous and he made you holy and he perfected you. And I had somebody, I said that to somebody, and these are Christians. They started laughing at me.
Some laughed at Jesus.
So listen, guys, I said this last time. At some point in time, we got to start believing in Jesus Christ.
And His finished works.
Instead of seeing ourselves in this sinful nature still, how about we start believing what He said? And so, listen.
Well, being in the world, though, of the operating system being the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, there's consequences. So God doesn't see sin, but guess what? You go do certain things.
Well, we walk around in this world. We walk around in this world, and in the middle of billions of people walking around this world, and they're all believing in free will. They're all believing they're self-believers, and they're all believing their own will and own power, and they all operate from this right and that's wrong. So we're walking around in this thing that's producing all this stuff out there that we look at and go, what in the world? Right?
Yeah.
And no wonder. I mean, it's not a surprise to me. I mean...
Well, and then, let's even look at Jesus going to the cross. Wait a minute. So, okay, God sent His Son Jesus. Jesus is God. And Jesus had to go to the cross and die a painful death of being lashed and beaten and then nailed to the cross. Like, that doesn't seem right. If God's doing that, if I was God, I wouldn't want to do it that way. And even Jesus, when He foresaw that, because He could see through the veil that most of us can't of what's to come, He said, Father, please remove this cup from me. And then in transition to, your will be done, not mine. Even Jesus tried taking His own will and pushing away that whole cross experience and realized, you know what, God? Your will be done. Thy will be done.
Well, guys, the reason why Jesus happened is because God gave us a manifestation.
So we could see it. Do you want me to grab? Is that something? You want me to grab it?
Grab it. He gave us a manifestation. He gave us a demonstration. Because He knows how He made us. We operate off of what we see, and what we touch, what we smell. What we taste.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what He did. He loved us enough to come down here in the flesh, just like me and you, walk around, never take on His deity, walk around. Guy walked right up to the cross and took it.
After getting beaten, severely beaten on the way, yeah. The whole thing.
So.
For us. To bear all of that for us.
Yeah, to show us what He did for us before time.
That's the other
thing. Because if we didn't have that, we just cannot believe in anything unless we see it. It's hard on us. So I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful I grew up in a family where they talked about Jesus Christ. We went to church and all those kind of things. So I heard about it. Okay, so I'm thankful for that, and God did all that. I appreciate it. God took me all through that. But when I heard the new covenant, man, He opened up my ears, man, and He gave me something that it's precious. There's nothing like it. It gives you peace and rest in your everyday. It changes your everyday. And unless you do it, unless it happens, how do you know it doesn't?
And that said, even God in flesh wasn't immune to difficulties and challenges. We're in this journey, and even though we know about it, we just have to go to God and look, God, this hurts.
Yeah, Tom and I were just talking about this. Yeah. We were just talking about this.
So thank you.
Father, just let this hurts.
Yeah.
But I know this is you. This isn't the other guy.
Right. And it's not me, thankfully.
And so,
like we can remove ourselves from the general manager of the universe. God's got
Father,
it. Just take your
you
steps.
tell me to thank you in all things, so thank you. You know what's best. You're God. You're God. So thank you for this thing that's hurting right now. So give me your faith and trust with this. And give me peace as I go through this. But I'm just telling you, Father, I love you. And I know you love me. But this hurts. This hurts. So we're talking about something that isn't of this world. This message, this new covenant message, is not of this world. It's not of this world, and that's why it's not taught in this world.
It's the message from the other tree.
And it's not something that, someday, I hear this all the time. Well, Dan, we're just not going to know things. We're not going to know things, Well, listen, if you want to know something, you got the all right here, buddy. You got the teacher, okay?
And that's where the new covenant resides.
You got the teacher, buddy.
In your heart. It's all written on your heart.
What if he tells me to... I got a friend of mine. He goes, Dan, he says to me, now, Dan, I want you to know that everything you're saying to me, I completely understand what you're saying. I completely understand it, but you have to understand, I grew up with this teaching. It's hard for me. It's hard, man. He says I completely understand what you just said. Makes total sense to me. It's just hard for me to get over what I've been taught my whole life. It's hard. And I said, well, I know it's hard. But that's why we go talk to God. I mean, this is all about Him wanting to talk to us.
Yeah. Go to God. He
wants to tell us all about it. And what are we doing? Well, we're just running off to the building.
And getting caught up in the world. We're getting caught up in
We're getting caught up in the world, man.
The judgment of that's wrong and this is right and that's wrong and I got to prove this is so right and I'm right and they're wrong and I'm going to show everybody how wrong they are. The world is easy to get sucked into.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine a world with people knowing that believing in the new covenant?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah,
we can't even comprehend that.
It's no more judgment.
We can't even.
No judgment.
Can't comprehend it.
With the old covenant comes judgment.
Man wakes up in the morning, sees himself. He woke up with all the stuff he was taught his whole life. You know what we got? We got people that are feeding off the wrong side of the wrong tree, and we got people feeding off the good side of the wrong tree. It's the wrong tree. Mm-hmm. Guys, it's the wrong tree. Here we are, 2,000 years after the death of Christ, still feeding off the wrong tree. And the tree of life sitting over there, right?
And isn't that what the new covenant ushered in? Tree of life.
The tree of life. What's the message of the tree of life? Well, gee, I don't know. 2,000 years after the death of Christ. Well, what's the message of the tree of life? Well, I don't know. Well, Pastor, he said, next week he's going to talk about The new covenant. Well, folks, let me explain something. I want you to make sure you understand this. If your pastor ever stands up and says he's going to teach his message on the new covenant, guess what? You're going to get an old covenant interpretation of the new covenant.
Law mixed with grace. Don't do this, do that.
So, anyway, you got to start out. You got to really, honestly, you got to start out talking to God about these things that you're fearful about, that's keeping you from being able to hear the new covenant message, the new covenant message from the tree of life. You got to talk to him about these fears, about the devil, you know. All these things that are keeping you from being able to hear the new covenant message. You got to talk to him about it.
It just hit me as you said that, like the operating system of the world, being in the world but not of it, cultivates and grows fear and worry and concern and doubt and lack of faith.
It's the byproduct of that belief system.
Faith is the tree of life, and recognizing that God has it all and had it all before any of this was created.
We were just talking before we got on here, talking about, where Tom was and where Tom is, and it's just, I remember saying to you, man, this thing's just going to settle in you. And now you and I, it's just like, why? It's so simple.
It settles in, and then when you hear messages, and this is where, and when Dan mentions, I just can't go to church, it's not because of the people and the people are doing things right or wrong. It's to hear the message that 2 + 2 = 5. What's the message? The message is, yes, God's grace is amazing, but not this stuff over here. You need to fix this.
Well, we got to work on this, and we got to work on that.
Yeah, you got to go do this.
We got to do this, and we're a part of the equation, and and all this on and on and on and on and on and on. But what happens is it just brings so much clarity, right? Yeah. And so when you do hear the old covenant, now, right? Yeah. It's not, well, gee, I wonder. Yeah. It's just like, boom.
Yeah. It settles in.
What's that? Well, here we go. Right back around the old covenant again.
I mean, stuff happens. I mean, right on the corner where Dan and I walk, up and down every day, I walked by this morning, there was police cars there. Oh, interesting. I wonder what happened. Well, come to find out, someone was stabbed and died right there. And guess what? In the twinkling of an eye, they had a new understanding of all of this. And also, guess what? Dan and I aren't going to walk by it in fear of any way, shape, or form. God's got it all. And there comes a peace with that.
Yeah, we wake
should
up.
I do this or shouldn't I do that?
We wake up and all those things that we were so sure of was true. Mm-hmm. We wake up and we say, oh, wait a minute. You did all of that?
Yeah.
You did it all? Yeah. Oh, I didn't have free will? Oh, you mean you say what? Mm-hmm. Before I was born?
Yeah, all of this. We have.
You mean all that stuff I saw out there, bad, that came from that thing we ate from? Huh? You mean we fed off of that belief system our whole life? You mean I wasn't under sin?
I had all these fears and worries and doubts.
You mean there was no devil? There wasn't an enemy?
Just God.
It's just you.
Loving me and all of it. Yeah. Or you can have the renewing here and walk around as we do, one step at a time, amazed every step. Like, wow, look at this. Look at this. And even when what we would label as challenges and difficulties and chaos, which is going to happen because that's the operating system we're in, and that's how God operates, we still give thanks in all. And just like, wow, this is an amazing adventure.
All I can say, his ways are perfect. And
But man tries
I don't get to tell him what he can and he can't do.
Man tries to take the God and the God relationship. Here's what you need to do and don't do, God. And God's like, well, guess what? I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And that's what sparks conversations.
So listen, if somebody comes up to you and they mention, hey, I'd like to learn some things. I'd like to talk to you about it.
Here.
Don't let that belief in the devil keep you from being able to hear. I mean, if we know what we believe in, what's the problem?
Spread joy and love. Just go out and have conversations.
I mean, serious is our answer? Is our answer, well, my pastor studies the Bible and he went to Bible school? That's the answer?
That's what's going to be in the world. A lot of people think that way. They need to see it.
Well, if we were going to get at truth, well, then God, he will give it to the church.
God's given it through this divine appointment right here. You're now hearing it, and now is the time.
Isn't that something? So, guys, we're not talking about a private interpretation here. Guys, there's people out there that know this. I hope you can hear it. I hope this, God flips a switch and
if they want to see a verse
in your life, and
Hebrews,
talks about the new covenants in Jeremiah 31 and Hebrews 8 and 10. Okay, that really it's about getting quiet. Go get quiet with God. Go get quiet with the God you say you believe in. Get intimate with him. Go get intimate with him. Say, Father, I don't know. I don't know, but you do. So tell me all about it, because I want to hear all about it. I want to hear all about it, Father. And if you want to have somebody like Tom walk into me in the grocery store, then have him talk to me.
Right.
If you want to use a rock when I'm walking down the beach, seashell or something, talk to me. Tell me about it. So I want to hear you, and I want to know who you are. I want to know who you are. That's the desire of my heart. I want to know who you are, and I want that to be real in my life, my everyday. I want peace and rest, and I know that only comes from you.
Yep.
So anyway,
and
it's tough for me.
But
we're
excited to have this channel and have you watching it, and dive into it. And we do have a resource from Bob George on Chats with God. chatsaboutgod.com/resources.
He does a great job of laying it out. I'm so grateful that God used Bob in my life, years and years and years ago, So we're just throwing it out there, guys.
If you have comments or questions, leave them for us. We look forward to seeing those and answering them on the upcoming podcast. Go listen to the other ones. We got some other good information there, and chatsaboutgod.com. For the resources there, the resources tab, you'll see some stuff from Bob George and some others that will be helpful. And our goal is to help spread some joy and love and give you peace and rest through God, getting to know God and the new covenant. Thank you for your time today.
Love you guys.
Love you. We'll chat with you soon.